Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
Under a blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to beg you, or cancel it though I know it must be the killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin, he will wait until you give yourself to him.
Imagine a world where Donald just has to die before an election, and that way the world will be spared unending horror. Also, let's talk about Donnie Darko today. We're talking about this incredibly weird and really important film from 2001 that is part of this period of filmmaking that was kind of notable for lots of mind bending. And this is one of the more mind bending of them, especially because, as we'll talk about, this film is arguably incomplete and heavily edited to make it even more confusing than it otherwise was. So, but oddly, I think it's for the better. So I'm really excited to be doing this, but I'm not doing it alone. I'm not going to die alone like this movie predicts, because all around me are familiar faces, including today's. You just recently heard him on the podcast on a Goofy movie, and he's joining us for what I'm trying to put together as Patrick MAYze, a month full of Patrick Swayze movies. So please welcome back to the show, Case Aiken.
I am beginning to doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.
Let no one doubt my commitment to sparkle motion. Case, good to have you back. Before we get underway, tell the audience about the cool shows you do.
Okay, yeah. So I host a couple of podcasts that you can find wherever you find your podcasts. So one is Men of Steel, which is a Superman and Superman adjacent show. It's a love letter to the archetype of being Superman and why it's cool. And then the other show I do is Another Pass, which is a movie analysis show, taking the perspective of looking at movies that we find fascinating but flawed from the perspective of the time of production and seeing what could have been done to make them tighter movies at the time of production. So those are the two main shows that I do. That's Men of Steel and Another Pass. And those can be found wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube, both on the Certain POV, which is the podcast network that I'm a part of, the Certain POV YouTube channel, which is Certain POV Media.
And I'll just say I've had the pleasure of moonlighting on both of those shows, and they're both wonderful. They're great to listen to, and you should all run out and subscribe to them right away. So let's talk about the topic here. I threw this one out to you because I was putting together this Patrick Swayze idea, and so this was on the short list of like, oh, this is an interesting Patrick Swayze movie, even though he's not, he's a supporting character here. It's pretty different from the things he's known for, like Dirty Dancing and Ghost and, those kinds of things. And so I said, hey, Case, we might do this Donnie Darko episode. You want to do it? And you were like, yeah, sure. So
yeah.
I'll throw it out to you. What are your nostalgic memories of Donnie Darko?
So Donnie Darko, I mean, like, it's like one of these cult movies that didn't have a big screen release when it came out. So I didn't see it. Like, I saw it in a theater, but not like in theaters. It was like playing at my college campus. And I remember, I remember distinctly, it was it's like the Thursday before, Easter weekend, my freshman year of college. And I was like 5 minutes late to the movie, which not actually a lot happens in those 5 minutes, but when you get to the end of this movie and it's confusing as it is, and you're like, what did I miss in those 5 minutes? like that was a mind-boggling situation for me that I emerged and remember distinctly thinking like I think I need a drink, and I arrived back at my my dorm room. And my roommate, who was a soccer player, was having a party, and I was like, "Well, I guess this solves that situation." And next thing I know, I woke up and there was a vase full of urine in the middle of my dorm room. Things got weird.
I mean, that's totally not in keeping with this movie, by the way, of like people waking up to strange circumstances. Yeah, my nostalgic memories of this, I definitely remember, I know I saw it around the time it came out. I don't think I saw it in theaters, though, but I was in college when this came out. I was a junior in 2001 when this released. And I was right in the pocket for this kind of stuff because, like, I wanted things that were going to be challenging and strange. This is around the time we started getting, Charlie Kaufman's first stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Filmmakers who would really break the mold in a lot of ways in the late 90s and early aughts. Go see our episodes on the films of those periods, and you'll see a lot of those that were mentioned as highlights. And so I remember seeing like posters for this movie in people's dorms and apartments, like that, the iconic image of Frank the Bunny all over the place. The Gary Jules song, the cover of Mad World by Tears for Fears, was all over the radio.
Yeah.
So it had an outsized presence in my world compared to, the rest of the world, where this movie kind of came and went unnoticed and built a cult following. But I was sort of keenly aware of it from the jump. I've seen it maybe at least 2 times before watching it again last night for the podcast. And today, I should mention, we're talking about the theatrical cut. That's the one I'm going to be walking us through. There is a director's cut of this, which it has 20 extra minutes of footage. It does a lot more to try and explain the lore of what's happening, but I will argue that it is fundamentally worse because understanding the sci-fi mechanics of what's happening in the movie is, I think, way less important than the emotional core of the movie and what it's trying to say about like the human condition. I think you're better off understanding it on that emotional wavelength and just leaving the sci-fi plot mystery to just be unsolvable.
Yeah, when this movie first came out, there was a lot of meta data to like absorb about it. There was like websites and stuff dedicated to the lore of this all, and it was fun to absorb it and rewatch it with that context. But additional scenes to sort of explain it all was not necessary for it. Like keeping it weird was sort of half of why it worked as a movie.
It's like most mysteries. Often the fun of a mystery is not knowing the answer and trying to fill in the gaps yourself. See prequels, Star Wars. But like, I really, because I did want to, for this podcast, make sure I did understand it, like what they were trying to get across, like what is actually happening in the movie. I think it's useful to try and like gather that information, whether by watching the director's cut or watching like just a YouTube explainer, and then just enjoying the theatrical cut for what it is and just saying like that. It's almost like, oh, it's an alternate universe version of this movie where it makes more sense moment to moment. So it helps inform and enrich your viewing, but I don't think it's actually a good substitute for the real movie. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the beat by beat in a minute, but like I think the themes and the characters here are really strong. Do you have any like characters or like themes you kind of want to talk about before we launch into the actual like structure or plot beats?
I will admit that I'm terrible with character names in this one. I will say that this is the era of Jenna Malone being just in so many things that I was obsessed with her in. Like this was around the same time as what was it, Secret Life of Alter Boys, or Dangerous Life of Alter Boys? I forget exactly. Yeah. But yeah, just was just obsessed with her in my like college days. So just want to shout out her presence here. Obviously, we've got.
By the way, she's Gretchen in the movie, the Donnie's girlfriend.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm just terrible with character names in this movie because there are so many like notable actors in this. All I mean, like. This is early in the careers of the Gyllenhaals, but like both Jake and Maggie like are obviously huge, and like they're the Darkos in this. But then we've got like Seth Rogen is like just like a thug in this.
I
movie.
forgot, yeah. Like all of a sudden he popped up on screen. I'm like, oh fuck, it's Seth Rogen. Like, what's he doing here? You've got a stacked cast. You've got Drew Barrymore, who was instrumental in getting it made. Like it landed on her desk, and she was the one who was excited about it, and she helped usher it to completion because Richard Kelly, the writer director, had no prior experience. He just had this script that he had been shopping around, and like I think it's a really lucky thing that he was the one to actually direct it, because I don't know that you could hand this to anybody else and have them come through with a movie that kind of honored what he was trying to do. Like only he really understood it, I think. There's even stories about like there's that montage in the movie that's set to I forget which song it is, but it's basically a music video, and the cast and crew or especially the cinematographers and stuff were like, why are we wasting our time on this music video? And it was only when they actually saw it cut together in the end, he was like, oh, that does work. Okay, I get it now. So you just need an auteur for this.
Yeah. The music video scenes are a lot of this movie. I forgot how many of them are in this movie.
There's a lot of needle
musical needle drops with the musical montage effects to it all, especially like slow-mos with it. There's what, like maybe like 3 or 4 big ones in this movie.
There's a lot of needle drops here, and they are on point. The movie is explicitly set in October of 1988, and they really nail, I think, the look, the sound of the 80s with these needle drops, and with the just the environment, the way it's shot. It looks like, cinematography wise, it looks like a John Hughes movie. And there are clear, I think, influences from him on this, the way it deals with high school angst. I think perfect. So you've got this really well realized 80s world. Again, you've got some kind of notable 80s figures. You've got Drew Barrymore. You've got Patrick Swayze, as we talked about before, kind of playing a very heightened comedic character, like in a way that like I really love this, because you don't see Patrick Swayze use this gear a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he's a heel that you're just supposed to despise in this movie, because they use like he had developed this reputation by the late 90s or early 2000s as just having a punchable face. This was an era where his hits were a few years ahead, and like this is some of the inherent sexism of the zeitgeist, where like he was known as like an actor for like movies like Ghost, where it's like here it's kind of like a ladies movie kind of thing, and so like there's some derision, and it's the toxic masculinity elements of the world, but so it played well into him being easily a character that could be like a hateable character in this.
Yeah, I could see like Dennis Quaid doing this. It's like we just watched The Substance not that long ago, and his character in that is sort of a similar, douchebag to this guy. There's a lot of actors who could do this, but I think you're right. It really pops because it bounces off of the character we know him as from some of these earlier films, where he's he's much more affable, and you want to love him as opposed to punch him.
Yeah.
Last person I kind of wanted to spotlight was Mary McDonnell. We had her, we talked about her on the podcast recently. We did Sneakers, which she is in, and she is great. She's one of those actors. It's like, what a great character actor she is. She's always like an anchor in anything she's in. And her performance here is really interesting and layered in a way that some of the characters are more kind of like, I won't say they're cardboard cutouts, but they're kind of like, they're here to make a point with this character as opposed to be a human being.
Yeah. I mean, like, the other moms that she interacts with in the circle of that like community that she's in are much more like cardboard cutouts, and she's very much the three-dimensional like rational adults in the room in all the scenes. Just want to shout out, this is right before Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
So just like huge moment for her. And this is where she like first like really got on my radar again after like Independence Day, where like everyone remembers her from that, but like, but in terms of being like, oh right, yeah, she is like a really good actress, and it is fun seeing her in this movie. Rewatching this movie hits so close to home for me because of this intense Catholic school vibe that is going on throughout this whole movie. And like, I went to a Catholic school, like I from pre-K all the way to senior year of high school. So like there's a lot of the world that they are in that feels extremely familiar to me, like right down to the fact that like all of the parents are like ready to vote for Bush because that's just it feels very much like the world that I come from, and including like the teachers feeling like they want to like tell the kids stuff but like not being allowed to because of the administrative body that they work for in the Catholic school. And so Mary McDonald's like mom, or like I forget the first name, her character's first name, but Mom Darko, Mrs. Darko, is Rose Darko. Pardon me, looking at the cast list. She feels like one of those characters who is like, again, like I said, the adult in the room. She's the rational party. Now, part of that is that she has a glass in her hand. But it is interesting listening to her like kind of playing the devil's advocate for all sides of situations and sort of being like, the person who's like kind of taking in the weird world that she's in. Like, and I think there's a reason why like she's got that weird wave to Gretchen at the end of the movie that comes down to like she's taking in the weirdness of this whole situation in a way that no one else is getting as much of the full story.
You get the impression that she is, of like Donnie's family, the closest one to him in terms of like she understands more. She's more intuitively in touch with what he's going through, even if she doesn't fully understand it. She's closer than anybody else. And, that's really embodied in that scene we'll get to later on where she kind of, he says something about like, it's how it must suck to have a wacko for a son. And she says, no, it doesn't. That moment is very telling, I think, of what the relationship is like. So, yeah. Yeah, but let's get into it. I know it's late where you are, and we've got some weird shit to get through. So let's do it. Movie opens with some sounds of thunder, and we see Donnie, Jake Gyllenhaal, waking up on a road just in the middle of the mountains in his pajamas. And he looks around, he smiles, grabs his bike, and rides home to the sounds of The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen, aptly, as we'll see later. So, and he rides past his hometown of Middlesex. We see there's a sign for the Halloween carnival that's coming, and just general suburban life that is Middlesex, anywhere USA.
Yeah, and I mean, like, what a location setting montage in terms of being like this middle America, but like very late 80s, like exact kind of just like set dressing.
Yeah, I mean they do a good job of recreating like I said, the look of the 80s. The sound here, obviously, Echo and the Bunnymen is a really cool new wave band. Interestingly, in the director's cut, the original intended song was Never Tear Us Apart by INXS. I honestly think The Killing Moon works way better, not only for the bunny reference, but it's more ominous and menacing. Like Never Tear Us Apart is kind of a love song. And I get that it kind of relates to human connection, which is a lot of what this movie's about. But I think The Killing Moon, it's like I said, sets you on edge a little more.
Yeah, just like another spot where the theatrical cut is just the stronger work.
Yep. So Donnie comes home. There's a conspicuous whiteboard on the fridge that just says, "Where's Donnie?" And we get the impression that he goes missing a lot. And we see that it's dinner. It must be October of '88 because people are talking about who's going to vote for Dukakis versus Bush. And Donnie is just, he's grouchy. He's kind of disconnected from his family. We hear that he's a fuck ass who stopped taking his medication.
I'm voting for Dukakis.
Well, maybe when you have children of your own who need braces and you can't afford them because half of your husband's paycheck goes to the federal government, you'll regret that
My
decision.
husband's paycheck?
Oh.
Anyway, I'm not gonna squeeze one out till I'm like 30.
Will you still be working at the yarn barn? Because I hear that's a really great place to raise children.
That's really funny.
No, I think a year of partying's enough. She'll be going to Harvard next fall.
Mom, I haven't even gotten in yet.
Do you honestly think Michael Dukakis will provide for this country till you're ready to squeeze one out?
Yeah, I do.
When can I squeeze one out?
Not until 8th grade.
Excuse me.
Donnie, you're such a dick.
Whoa, Elizabeth. A little hostile there. Maybe you should be the one in therapy, then Mom and Dad can pay someone $200 an hour to listen to all your thoughts, so we don't have to.
Okay. You want to tell Mom and Dad why you stopped taking your medication?
You're such a fuck ass.
Please.
Did you just call me a fuck ass?
Elizabeth, that's enough.
You can go suck a fuck.
Oh, please tell me, Elizabeth, how exactly does one suck a fuck?
You want me to tell you?
Please tell
We
me.
will not have this at the dinner table. Stop.
Yeah. This has such that there's this authenticity to the nature of just like high school kids trying to invent new portmanteaus of swear words into whatever is an attempt at having one that sounds like reasonably offensive. Like the suck a fuck line is another example in this one where they're just like, I could imagine me being 14 and like trying to like articulate using swear words because it seems so expressive for the first time, like finding the uses of them, but putting them in the wrong sequences and like configuring them in the wrong way. And that's what these like kind of like lines like feel like.
And I saw, at least in my research, that these were this came straight out of like Richard Kelly's own life. These words, there was something that he remembered having, arguments with his family and these words being used. So there's actually a number of things in this movie that are pulled from Richard Kelly's actual life. If one of them comes up, I'll mention it as we go. But yeah, we're introduced to Mom, Dad. That's Rose and Eddie. His older sister, Elizabeth, that's Maggie Gyllenhaal, again, Jake's real life older sister, and younger sister, Samantha Darko, who gets her own movie that apparently is not good. I've never seen it. Anyway, so that night, Donnie's reading in his room. Mom comes in and wants to know where he goes at night. And they have a fight, and she says, I don't recognize my son anymore. And he says, well, then you take the pills. And he calls her a bitch as she leaves the room. And so they've established he's a troubled kid. He's in therapy. They're giving him some kind of unnamed psychotropic medication, and his relationships with his family have suffered. And it's not clear if it's because of his mental illness that his family relationships have suffered, or he just resents being treated like a freak by his family, and that's what's causing it. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a more pronounced, like, version of the adolescent struggle by way of using mental illness to create this sort of, like, more extreme situation. I was watching it this time with a more sensitive eye to its handling of mental illness, and I'm not, like, terribly certain I feel comfortable with it all, but it also is, like, a movie made in 2001 and set about the 80s. So, who's to say there?
I mean, look, watching someone take a pill is movie shorthand for, they're troubled. They got mental problems. It's just like, here, this person has an issue. They take medication, and then that evens them out, and they're fine. But it also is there to cast doubt again, as this movie's already confusing, it's telling you should not trust what you're seeing, and you can't always trust Donnie as a narrator, because he could be hallucinating stuff. He could actually have schizophrenia, and he could be highly unreliable. So I think it's too simplistic and not a very fun interpretation that, hey, the whole movie's a delusion, but let's throw some more uncertainty into the mix, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll certainly talk about how much of all that is, but yes, Donnie is definitely an unreliable narrator, and they're using this as shorthand. It's just, I don't know. There's just some lines in there, and like, admittedly, he has extremely severe mental problems, and so the medications he's on are probably very extreme. But like, as someone who like takes medicine for like anxiety and depression and like all the things, like I will say he seems to have a very extreme reaction to them all, and to his interpretation of taking them. But it's not one that I can't like relate to like experiencing. It's just like very pronounced, and maybe that's just movie shorthand. It's like I said, it's just like I was watching it more with an eye towards it, just because like I wasn't as in touch with like my own like mental state when I was really like into this movie back in like the college age time.
Yeah, and I think they also want to inject some Cassandra complex stuff in there, where it's just like, he's going to be trying to explain, peril to people, and people are going to discount him and call him crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're setting that up, and you need that, I think. But he takes his pill, things fade to black. And in the middle of the night, his dad gets up, goes downstairs to watch TV. He's watching the debate, like a rerun of it, and it's midnight. We get our first title card that shows us exactly when it is. It's 10/2/88, and we hear a very strange, distorted voice say, "Wake up!" And Donnie gets out of bed. He sleepwalks. We start hearing the voice again. I've been watching you. Come closer. Come outside. Donnie walks out the front door, and he sees this fucking hideous man in a bunny suit. Just absolute like dark versions of Alice in Wonderland shit. And he gives a countdown of 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. And that's when the world's going to end. And this is our first vision of Frank the Bunny.
I've been watching you. Closer. Closer.
What's your feeling on Frank the Bunny?
Oh God. So, I love the design of Frank the Bunny. I should start with that. Like, I think that in terms of the look of the character, that's really cool. Is it necessary? No, absolutely not. Is it just like a fun detail? Yeah. Now, how do I feel about the character in terms of like, is it an avatar of like the pocket universe that they're in, traveling through time and so forth, and that whole weirdness? Like, I don't know. It's like kind of rad. Like that's you're sort of buying in on the weirdness of the whole Donnie Darko world, and this character that being this like this twisted gothic rabbit character, like mascot character at first, before you reveal that like it's a person with a fucked up like eye wound underneath the mask. It makes it more unreliable, like we're saying, like makes it be a thing like where you don't know what you can trust of Donnie's visions of everything. So I think that's really appropriate, and it's just weird, and this movie is a lot of like stylish weird, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, very much so, right? This is this like Tim Burton character in the middle of this movie, and he's fucking terrifying. And they're kind of playing with like, I don't know, Jacob's Ladder type shit. But also there's this long history, that goes back to things like Harvey, right? The story about a guy who sees an invisible rabbit that no one else can see, right? It's kind of this shorthand, imaginary friend type character. There's a whole thing about like rabbits and this kind of stuff. The March Hare, right? And so, yeah, he's a great, like, he's kind of the only like avatar of the supernatural that we get. It's not like there's other figures, but it almost like he feels like a herald, that's kind of what he's doing.
Right. I mean, he literally gives heralds the actual end of the world and by giving the actual times for it.
Yeah. And so Dad's watching Static on the TV. He's falling asleep. And it's midnight, and Liz comes home. She sneaks in from wherever she's been, and there's an enormous kaboom, and we fade to black. We're going to find out what that is in a minute. But Donnie wakes up on the middle of a golf course because this is what he does. He sleepwalks. And so he's woken up by Patrick MAYze. His character's name is Jim Cunningham, and some friend of his.
Son? Donnie Darko? Donnie Darko? What the heck's going on here?
Who is it, Don?
It's Eddie Darko's kid. I'm sorry about this, Jim. He's just a neighborhood kid.
Guess he was sleep golfing?
Watch out for that drool spot.
Are you all right, son?
So, let's stay off the links at night, okay?
I'm sorry, Dr. Fisher. It won't happen again.
And he's trying to figure out what he's been up to. He's got that date that Frank gave him written on his arm in pen. And he walks home to find that his house is surrounded by barricades and cops, which he pushes his way past to find out that mysteriously a jet engine, no jet, just the engine, has fallen into his bedroom and would have killed him but for the fact that he was out sleepwalking that night.
Right. Which gets into this is where the universe splits off into the pocket universe according to the weird pseudoscience of this movie.
Right. Again, stuff that you kind of only can get from this director's cut and, kind of apocryphal material. But basically, yes, there is in theory, what was supposed to happen was Donnie was supposed to die in his bed. But because he didn't, we're now in what they call in the lore, a tangent universe. In other words, a branching timeline where he did not die. And that is going to be the engine that drives everything else in the movie from here forward.
Right.
But it's go ahead. I was saying it's just a great Twilight Zone setup of like where this engine come from if there was no plane.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the additional component of that the movie's like circles around to this. So I think it like supports the weird meta lore, which is why I bring it up. Like if it wasn't relevant. But yeah, the engine that like crashes down, like the fact that they have no serial numbers for it, which they treat as just being burned off. And so no one acts like it's particularly weird, but it's also is a situation where no one died. And so as a result, like the investigation isn't, like they're getting financial compensation for the damages, and the FAA like acts quickly to repay them. But because Donnie wasn't killed, like the severity of it all, like no one's like they don't have the anger that would be associated with it if it was, if their son had died, to investigate why did this engine from a jet fall in, and why do you not know what jet it came from?
Right. I mean, at this point, it sort of becomes more of like an annoyance and an insurance problem, right? Of, we got to rebuild this room. And the FAA makes them all, sign non-disclosure agreements and stuff. And it's just kind of chalked up to this, just like, well, things are weird sometimes. The Darkos go to stay in a hotel for the night. And they kind of talk amongst themselves about, what this could be. That's just sort of it. One thing that's to note, they do this shot of like this, they show the jet engine and there's like this spiral in red on the middle of it. I don't know if that was something that they addressed in the director's cut or what, but it was very conspicuous and I never got around to figure out what it is, other than maybe just this idea of like a spiral as a metaphor for something.
Yeah, so I think this is an example where, because that shot always like stood out to me too. Like that's a common thing on jet engines. And I think it's one where they just got a shot that was really cool and weird. But because it's not just like a commonly known thing, but it is just like there in a lot of jet engine design, like I think it's one that just like it begged the question that they didn't have an answer for.
Yeah. There's a few things that like go like there's many things that go unanswered, even in both versions of this movie. So the next morning, kids are going to school. The Darkos roll up to the bus stop, and the kids want to know all about what happened. They basically say they don't know anything. They can't believe Donnie cheated death.
Oh my God. Okay, tell me everything. You're not allowed to talk about it. Oh my God. I sure he said. Shut up.
Darko cheats death, huh? You're like a celebrity, man. I've been like calling you like a jillion times. Where you been?
We stayed at a hotel.
Hey, my dad said he saw you at the golf course. You sleepwalking again there, buddy?
I don't want to talk about it.
And now that you're famous, you gotta have a smoke.
What happens if you tell Mom and Dad about this, Sam?
You'll put Ariel in the garbage disposal.
God damn right I will.
So, Brody.
Hey, Sharita, you want a cigarette?
Shut up! Shut up!
Go back to China, bitch.
Just leave her alone.
Some good shit, huh?
It's a fucking cigarette.
And, they offer him a smoke, and Samantha's going to tell on him, and he basically says, like, no, you do that, and I'll make your life hard. I'll throw Ariel in the garbage disposal. And I clocked that because The Little Mermaid didn't come out until 1989.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is this? Is that just a flub on the movie making part, or was that meant to signal something? I couldn't figure that out. Do you have any thoughts on that, or is it just like weird?
I'm assuming that's just like a accidental anachronism.
Yeah, I couldn't chalk it up to anything else either. And we meet this character. I forgot to write down her name. She's this other student at the school. She's very quiet, this kind of heavyset Asian girl that the other kids are all too happy to make fun of because she is either Asian, heavyset, or both. We'll see Donnie come to her defense later. Like, it kind of, he's letting us know like he's troubled, but he does actually have some kind of a moral compass. So anyway, this happens here. Someone says like, "Go back to China, bitch," and he defends her. It's rough. People are mean to her throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, it's a really uncomfortable character that they just, I mean, it's again, it's authentic. But yeah, just the fact that there's a heavyset Asian character who is not, seems to have like, at least like some limitations of English, even if it's just an accent. But that all of those are reasons for people to pick on her is just like frustrating to watch.
I think it fits into the overall themes of the movie. I mean, yes, it's painful to watch this poor girl be bullied, but I think that this feeds into kind of the overall theme of this movie, which is, again, human connection, right? The things that we do weave a fabric with each other, even if we can't always see all the connections. and we all walk around feeling isolated at the same time. And like this character feels very isolated, right? We don't see her have any friends. Most people are mean to her, and she has to kind of soldier on with that. And so I think she becomes kind of a symbol for those negative emotions, like kind of human cruelty and stuff. Cause she's often, unfortunately, kind of the focal point of that. Where are we? So yes, the kids go to school. This is that music video I was talking about. The song is Head Over Heels, also by Tears for Fears. And we get all kinds of stuff in here. We see a copy of Attitudinal Beliefs, which is Swayze's book. We see Mrs. Farmer, who is the gym teacher, who is completely lockstep with the Swayze cult. We see this huge creepy dog statue that's, I guess, like the school's symbol or mascot. It's like Breakfast Club clicks.
Yeah, I was shocked again. Like I had forgotten about that weird statue until rewatching it, and it was like, oh yes, the weird grotesque like dog human thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like picture McGruff the crime dog, sort of, but naked, no trench coat, and like big. It's really
and strangely
large.
Muscular. Yeah.
Yeah. We also see here, so we see Patrick Swayze being introduced to like members of the school faculty, which includes Noah Wiley, the science teacher, and Drew Barrymore, the English teacher. We see Sparkle Motion practicing their dance routine.
Yep.
And this is just sort of the world. Time flies, time goes by fast, and we cut to Drew Barrymore teaching the students this Graham Greene short story called The Destructors. Which is basically, kind of Joker stuff. Some men want to watch the world burn. That's what it's about.
It was as though this plan had been with him all his life, pondered through the seasons. Now, in his 15th year, crystallized with the pain of puberty. What is Graham Greene trying to communicate with this passage? Why did the children break into Old Misery's house? Joni?
They wanted to rob him.
Joni, if you had actually read the short story, which at a whopping 13 pages would have kept you up all night, you would know that the children find a great deal of money in the mattress, but they burn it. Donnie Darko, perhaps with your recent brush with mass destruction, you can give us your opinion.
Well, they say it right when they flood the house and they tear it to shreds, that destruction is a form of creation, so the fact that they burn the money is ironic. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart. They want to change things.
And Donnie's the only one who really understands that's the theme of the book, right? Which is like the other students kind of struggle, but he gets it, which is like there is something, there's almost an act of creation in destruction that there's people want to destroy things just to kind of see what happens when you pull the world apart at the seams.
Right. Yeah. We have the other kids like mistake the identity of, or mistake the plot as being about like robberies and shit like that. But like Donnie's the only one who like does have that like deeper understanding, which, sort of reflects the fact that he's an older student in the class.
Well, they talk about this later, that like his test scores are off the charts. Like he is a very smart kid, and he understands a lot about the world that, his peers, they're not looking at things on that intensely a level. They're, everything is surface level and hedonism with them in a way that I think part of why he feels troubled is he's one of those kids that like, yeah, sometimes being smart can be a curse because you're aware of all the horrible things that most people are blissfully ignorant of.
Sure. I just mean like I'm just also bringing up the fact that he is like, because he was held back because of his behavioral issues. Like he's like, all of this is very easy to him.
Right. And we're introduced to the new girl, Gretchen, walks into the class, and the teacher tells her to sit to next to the boy she thinks is the cutest, which I was like, how does a teacher get away with that shit?
I know, right?
My wife turned to me and was like, what? And she's seen this movie several times, but she was just gobsmacked by that moment.
Yeah, that's a wild line that just you're just like, how was that okay?
Yeah. They never come back to it, but this obviously gives her a chance to be introduced to Donnie and bond with him a little bit before they get to know each other better. So we get a quick scene of Dad and Donnie driving in the car. Donnie can't drive, by the way, because of his, he's gotten into trouble before. He burned an abandoned house down, and part of the punishment was you can't drive until you're 21. So anyways, Dad's giving a ride. They're talking about what, hey, we're not supposed to talk about the roof and what we're going to do about it, blah, blah, blah. This is, you can tell Thurman whatever you want, who is his therapist. We'll meet later. And they almost hit Grandma Death, a.k.a. What's her name? Roberta Sparrow.
Yep.
As she is doing her endless routine of checking her mailbox. And this is a woman who's like 101 years old. And this is another autobiographical thing, that there was a woman that Richard Kelly knew growing up. They called her Grandma Death, who just, old lady shuffling around. Here, of course, she's very, very plot relevant. But this is our first meeting with her. What did you think of this character? Because she's a really interesting element in the movie. And I don't know if she's more developed in the director's cut. I can't remember.
I do not recall. I think she's an interest. Obviously this is just our first introduction to the character, but overall we find out that she does have this interesting background as being this this genius in the field of time travel and having this like really like rich sort of like backstory to her, and that's like pretty cool. Yeah, like I enjoyed the character, and like it felt like they're. It felt like my interactions with like senior citizens that like made me like very sympathetic to like someone who used to have it and it's so much of that has like slipped away, and that you just like feel for them.
Yeah, I mean she's coded as having some kind of severe dementia.
Yeah,
right. That she checks her. But we'll see later. She'll check the mailbox for mail, and she won't even go back and check it like hours later. She'll go back. She'll walk like 10 feet away. Go check the mail, as if the mailman could have gotten in there in the last 20 seconds and she didn't notice. Right. And they imply this is connected to some of the time travel sci-fi stuff. Although I don't feel like they fully connect those dots as to, is she looking for a letter she's supposed to get?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's like Tenet style. And so eventually it will be like the time moving backwards items.
I don't know. Yeah, it feels like there's a prequel with her that would be kind of cool to see what that looks like. But anyway, Donnie goes to therapy with Dr. Thurman, and he tells her that he made a new friend, by which he means Frank the Bunny. And
right.
He reveals what Frank told her about the end of the world. And she asks, does he think the world is ending? And he says no. But his eyes say he's unsure about that.
I met a new friend.
Real or imaginary?
Imaginary.
Would you like to talk about this friend?
Frank.
Frank. What did Frank say?
He said to follow him.
Follow him? Where?
Into the future.
And then what happens?
And then he said that the world is coming to an end.
Do you think the world is coming to an end?
No. That's stupid.
And this is our first real meeting with Dr. Thurman.
Yeah, and it was a viable way of sort of like summing up everything that we needed to know up until this point in this scene. So that's a useful element for the character.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get a lot more with her later. So I guess we don't need to talk about it all now. I think the more meaty scenes with Dr. Thurman come a little later in the movie. But we got to... I love anytime we see one of these, this is amazing. So we see one of these videos that Jim Cunningham, Patrick Swayze puts out.
And finally, I looked in the mirror. Not just in the mirror. I looked through the mirror. In that image, I saw my ego reflection.
For 2 years, I thought it was normal for a 10-year-old to wet the bed. We tried everything. But the solution was there all the time. I'm not afraid anymore!
All over America, people have come together to join hands. People who believe that human life is absolutely too important, too valuable, and too precious to be controlled by fear. Hello, my name is Jim Cunningham, and welcome to Controlling Fear.
And this first one is all about, controlling your fear. And this hit home for me. I knew a lot of people who were all about like, you got to face your fears and you control it. And it's like, there's a kernel of truth in that. But this is so just like macho bullshit.
Yeah, it's like that predatory self-help kind of program, which is, of course, what the character is supposed to be. But yeah, man, again, just being pitch perfect with like the emulation of like this window of time and these kinds of like not ads, but like these self-help videos that were like running at the time.
It's very much that kind of self-help thing, which is just like, listen to me. I've got it all figured out. I've got a system. I can reduce all the complexities of life to this simple thing. And if you just follow these simple steps, you'll be happy, right? As we'll see with Farmer, like this is very cult-like and kind of like super unhealthy. Like this is, the fact that so much of the town is kind of enamored with this guy is, upsetting.
Oh, for real. And yeah, like I said, the cult-like component of it where they go out of their way to be like, this guy is not just like a con man, but he's like a particularly shitty con man.
Yeah. And he's even worse than you think. We'll find out later. Yeah.
It's like, how bad is he? That bad. Like even worse than that bad. Like the worst.
Yep.
And then people are still at his defense. Like Farmer is still at his defense when this is all said and done.
Well, and it's crazy that like she's the gym teacher and she's using their time in PE to make everyone in the class watch these videos because she's so just like all in on this guy.
Yeah, but I have to say that does feel authentic to some of my experience in like Catholic schools where they would like really push like ideology of things in like classes that didn't seem to make sense.
I never had anything quite this fucked up at least that I can remember. And if I did see something like this, as a teenager, I'm sure I would have had some version of the reaction that Donnie has, which is to immediately, my bullshit detector would go off. I'd be like, okay, I'm not listening to this. I know who taught me right from wrong. And it was Jean-Luc Picard. Anyway, so Donnie dreams of his school being full of water, this weird CG shot. And he sees Frank again, and we see Donnie walking with an axe. And he goes and he hits a pipe. And we're told, 24 days left until the end of the world. And the next morning, school is closed because guess what? It flooded. Now this ties into the like sci-fi stuff in that like, so Donnie is in the like the lore. I forget what they call him. He's like the living vessel or something. He's savior of the world basically is what he's supposed to be.
Right.
And that the person who is gifted with this or cursed with this responsibility also gets like superpowers with it, including things like manipulation of like water and fire and stuff like, and this is meant to be kind of the idea of like, oh, well, this is Donnie exercising power over water. Again, all shit that's totally unnecessary and like interesting to hear about, but doesn't, all you need to know is that he hallucinated and he flooded the school by busting the water main.
Yeah, he apparently has super strength. That's apparently how he's able to get the axe into the statue's head, apparently. But like, do you need to know that? No, you don't.
I just buy that he just got the thing into the head of the dog statue. But next to that is written in huge letters, "They made me do it." So that's going to be the powers that be. That's their clue to try to figure out who committed this assault on the school. So we see Jenna being harassed by these two a-holes. Bully, whose name I can't remember, and I believe Seth Rogen, right? Because they're like a pair, Beavis and Butthead. And Donnie comes up and tries to assist. She says, "Can you walk me home?" i.e. get me out of this situation. And Donnie quickly figures it out and says, "Sure, I'll walk you home." And now we get them bonding over their shared emotional trauma.
So, why'd you move here?
My parents got a divorce. My mom had to get a restraining order against my stepdad. He has emotional problems.
Oh, I have those too. What kind of emotional problems does your dad have?
He stabbed my mom 4 times in the chest.
Oh. Did he go to jail?
No, he fled. They still can't find him. But my mom and I had to change our names. And I thought Gretchen Ross was really cool.
Yeah, I was in jail once. I mean, I accidentally burned down this house. I mean, it was abandoned, but still, I got held back in school. And can't drive till I'm 21, But I'm over all that. I'm painting and stuff, writing. I want to be a writer, or maybe a painter, I don't know, maybe both. I'll write a book and draw the pictures. Then maybe people understand me. I don't know, change names.
Donnie Darko. What the hell kind of name is that? It's like some sort of superhero or something.
What makes you think I'm not?
Yeah, there's like the very cute issue or like scene where she's like, my father, he has emotional issues. Like, oh, I do too. What are his?
You can say it. It's pretty fucked up.
Well, yeah, like ultimately, like the actual issues are fucked up. Her father was violent and like stabbed her mom, but that. But yeah, like the interplay is kind of adorable, being like, we're broken, but in sort of similar ways, and so they bond that way.
Yeah, she asks, I got to write an essay about what's the best invention ever. And he says antiseptics, right? And he gives this very kind of clever, interesting answer. But she kind of comes back with like, you mean soap? And that's kind of, yes. But he says, I'm really glad the school flooded because if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have talked. And this is kind of hitting an important theme in the movie, which is causality and free will and predetermination. And the movie talks a lot about that, of like this idea of like, do we have a choice to deviate from the path that is set before us, right? Do we live in a predeterministic world or not? And here Donnie is like praising that, of like, this causal chain led me to you, so it must be good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, getting into the weirdness of like, is this weird tangential universe? There's certainly aspects of it that are good, but ultimately he has to choose to sacrifice himself in this universe and has to like give up the things that are good about it, which is really his relationship with Gretchen.
Well, I guess this is a good time for me to bring up another lore thing from the director's cut, which is another. So he's like, I forget again what they call him, the vessel or the whatever he is, the chosen one, basically. And then they talk about these things called the manipulated living and the manipulated dead, which are essentially the people and circumstances around him. The idea being that like pieces on a chessboard, they will do things that maneuver Donnie into position to be able to save the world by ending the tangent universe. In other words, this growing alternate timeline threatens to destroy both it and the primary timeline. And so Donnie has to sacrifice himself to undo that. And these people, by the choices they make and the things they do, are moving him into position to be able to do it and save the world. But it's more about like, Donnie has to ultimately make the choice to make the sacrifice, but he has to come to that choice honestly. He has to understand why he's doing what he's doing. So it's like, it's predeterministic, but it's still a choice. He has to like understand what he's doing. So that's what's being played with behind the scenes. But again, going back to like the emotional content matters more than the sci-fi plot content. He's talking about like, complacency and stuff like, where do you fit in your life and how do you feel about the choices you make and how they affect other people?
That is deep.
It's a lot of, I know this is a heavy movie with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, did you pick up on that kind of stuff when you were watching it? I mean, I know you know that's part of the movie now, but like when you first saw it, were you like getting what it was laying down, or were you like just awash in the weirdness?
I mean, again, that first time I watched it, I was so confused. But like, because I've done the deep dives and I've done the rewatches where it's like, what is the, like, what is going on with the timeline and so forth. And so, like, how are we getting into the causal sequences for everything that create this, like, this branched timeline, in this world, and like the weird interactions of, like you said, the living and the dead that are circling around. Like, I've gotten into those themes, but man, that first time I did not understand this movie.
No, I didn't either. Like I said, I felt like I was resonating with the emotionality of it, but without having any clue as to how it was all working. But I did, you at least get, I think, the idea that like they want you to think about like, oh, like I said, cause and effect and connection is kind of what still the motifs they're playing with.
Yeah.
So he goes back to a psychologist. He goes back to Dr. Thurman, who says she's going to try hypnosis on him. And this just ends up leading to him talking about how he just thinks about girls all the time, and he starts unbuttoning his pants like he's going to jerk off in his therapist's office, and she wakes him up out of it.
Yeah. Now, do you think that was legit, or do you think he was fucking with her?
I thought he was fucking with her, but the acting from Jake Gyllenhaal when he wakes up seems genuinely like confused and embarrassed. Like he did not know what he was doing.
Right. Yeah, I go back and forth on that one. I was rewatching that, and from the lens of if he is intentionally messing with her, and it could still be him just acting like he's embarrassed to keep up the illusion. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you which makes the most sense to me, and I think I kind of go back and forth depending on how much I want to buy that this movie accepts the existence of hypnosis.
Yeah, I think this movie accepts the existence of just about anything. It's got a little bit of an X-Files feel to it. So, like, if they talked about Bigfoot, I'd believe that there was a Bigfoot in this universe.
Yeah, but like it also has a vibe about really being into going against popular things from the late 80s, and like hypnotherapy was like a thing of like the late 70s or 80s, and I could see that being like a thing that people, or that like Kelly the director would not want to have or would want to like parody and like make fun of directly. So like I could see, yes, this movie is like the type of movie that allows for the existence of hypnosis being a true thing, but it also is a movie that allows for the existence of God being a true thing, or maybe not. I don't know. But it is also snarky enough that it could be making fun of hypnosis as a concept.
Yeah, that's also a narrative convenience, right? It gets us to places inside Donnie's head that maybe we couldn't get to otherwise, or at least lets Thurman see into his head in a way that only the audience gets to. As we go back to class, everyone is writing "They made me do it" on the board because they want to see if the handwriting matches the handwriting that was left in the school quad. Although the letters in the school quad are like 3 feet wide each, so I can't imagine your
it's like
tiny handwriting.
Yeah,
I don't think my spray painting would match my penmanship. But anyway,
right? Exactly.
But they put a question next to Donnie's name, as maybe this is his handwriting. But Donnie is then accosted by the bully in the bathroom, like not just accosted, but like with a knife to his throat, because the bully's pissed. Because he is being suspected of the vandalism and resents Donnie, who maybe he doesn't realize he's right, but he certainly suspects Donnie of having done it. And he just kind of lets him go. This is the first round of like serious threats. But like quick escalation, like that. This is fucked up.
Yeah, that bully character is really violent. Like threatens him with a knife, like for very little notice in the bathroom, theoretically with cops in the building. It's a very extreme character.
Yeah, we cut from this to some Kevin Smith shit because they're all debating, Smurf procreation.
Yes.
Smurfette doesn't fuck. That's bullshit. Smurfette fucks all the other Smurfs. Why do you think Papa Smurf made her? It's because all the other Smurfs were getting too horny.
No, not Vanity. I heard he was a homosexual.
Okay, well, you know what? Then she fucks them while Vanity watches, okay?
Well, what about Papa Smurf? I mean, he must get into the action.
Yeah, what he does, he films the gangbang. Later on, he beats off to the tape.
First of all, Papa Smurf didn't create Smurfette. Gargamel did. She was sent in as Gargamel's evil spy with the intention of destroying the Smurf village. But the overwhelming goodness of the Smurf way of life transformed her. And as for the whole gangbang scenario, it just couldn't happen. Smurfs are asexual. They don't even have reproductive organs under those little white pants. This was so illogical, you know, about being a Smurf. You know, what's the point of living if you don't have a dick?
Which is pretty funny, although not a really important scene, just kind of a fun detour.
No, but it is exactly what, like, it's a Kevin Smith-esque kind of scene, or a Tarantino-esque bit of dialogue in there, just for the sake of having some pop culture conversation, which I was here for when this movie first came out. That was exactly the kind of thing that I expected in my indie movie.
Yeah. They watch Grandma Death again. We get a little more exposition about her. She's 101 years old. She just walks back and forth to the mailbox all day. And we have a PTA meeting and about it's supposed to be about the cause of the flooding, but this leads to Farmer, the gym teacher, leading a big old protest against the teaching of Graham Greene, The Destructors, the short story from before, because it notably features the hooligans in the book destroying something via flooding. So she's making a monkey see monkey do argument that Drew Barrymore bristles against.
Yeah, it's such a. I mean, Farmer is supposed to be this like cartoonish kind of character for us to make fun of, but yeah, it's one of those moments where the scene really has this like intense music in the background to sort of like pace it out, and to sort of like to get the juxtaposition of like the different like voices arguing in the sequence there.
Well, it's also intercut.
Right, yeah.
With the sequence of Donnie looking into a mirror and seeing Frank, and like the mirror ripples in like a CGI way.
Which I have to say, at the time when this movie came out, was so cool.
Yeah, these effects have not aged well, but it kind of doesn't matter because they're so weird and it's all in Donnie's head that you can just kind of forgive it. But you're more transfixed by Frank, and he asks Frank, why'd you make me flood the school? And he says, well, they're all in great danger. And he asks, where did you come from? And he says, time travel.
How can we do that?
And how do they do this? They flood the house by breaking through a water main.
I can do anything I want. And so can you.
And I think that this garbage should be removed.
Excuse me. What is the real issue here? The PTA doesn't ban books.
The PTA is here to acknowledge that pornography is being taught in our curriculum.
It's meant to be ironic.
Excuse me, you need to go back to grad school.
Why do you make me flood the school?
They are in great danger.
Kitty, you even know who Graham Greene is?
I think we have all seen Bonanza.
Well, while we are on other topics,
Where did you come from?
Do you believe in time travel?
Who are you talking to?
I was just taking my pill, Sam.
And then Samantha pops into the bathroom to talk to him, and everything is whoosh back to normal.
Yep.
And so now we cut to a really great scene. This is Farmer, again, teaching the gospel of Jim Cunningham to the students, including this fear and love dichotomy. And she just writes this big line that's, fear on one end, love on the other. And she gives everybody a card with a little morality riddle. And they're supposed to mark on this continuum between fear and love where their conundrum lies. And Donnie calls this out as total bullshit, and it's awesome.
Ling Ling finds a wallet on the ground filled with money. She takes the wallet to the address on the driver's license, but keeps the money inside the wallet. I'm sorry, Miss Farmer, I don't get this.
Just place an X on the lifeline in the appropriate place.
No, I mean, I know what to do. I don't get this. You can't just lump things into two categories. Things aren't that simple.
The lifeline is divided that way.
Well, life isn't that simple. I mean, who cares if Ling Ling returns the wallet and keeps the money? Has nothing to do with either fear or love.
Fear and love are the deepest of human emotions.
Okay, but you're not listening to me. There are other things that need to be taken into account here, like the whole spectrum of human emotion. You can't just lump everything into these two categories and then just deny everything else.
If you don't complete the assignment, you'll get a 0 for the day.
Donald, let me preface this by saying that your Iowa test scores are intimidating. So, let's go over this again. What exactly did you say to Ms. Farmer?
I'll tell you what he said. He asked me to forcibly insert the lifeline exercise card into my anus.
Yeah, it's one of the really funny sequences, and it plays well into just like how funny the relationship with his parents are.
Yeah, I mean, he points out you can't force all of human experience into a bipolar continuum where just everything's just fear or love. And she's like telling you, like, well, if you don't do it, you fail the assignment. And we cut to the principal's office after this.
Yes, yeah.
I love this. This is her shitty description of what he told her to do.
Right, and the dad cannot hold back his laughter. It is like the worst like disciplining that you could imagine two parents doing, because they just find it hilarious that their son like spoke out against Kitty Farmer, who they just find is like a really annoying woman.
Well, and he's right? Like it's very obvious that he's right, she's wrong with this dumb exercise, and I love her. Like he told me to forcibly insert the lifeline into my anus.
Yeah.
Like just the use of the word anus is like so clinical, and like obviously he just said shove it up your ass, what he actually said. But it's so funny that she can't bring herself to say that.
Yes. Yeah.
As if she also says as if it was something Donnie meant she should literally do. So yeah, this is where she tells mom, you need to go have a talk with your son, and hope he doesn't succumb to the path of fear.
Of fear.
Ugh. So now it's October 10th, 1988, and Frank says, "I can show you the way." And Donnie goes to talk to his science teacher, Noah Wiley, about time travel. And this is where he provides him with a book, The Philosophy of Time Travel. And Donnie realizes this book was written by Grandma Death.
Yep.
I like these scenes. They're sort of like, Stephen Hawking for dummies, sort of, but they're fun.
Yeah, like the fact that we only have a couple of them and they're pretty quick keeps them from being from outstaying their welcome in terms of like providing here's some lore time for everyone. But
again, without the rest of the lore connective tissue, it's just sort of like, yeah, wormholes, they're a thing.
Yeah,
they don't try to explain a whole lot here, other than they just have to nudge you in the direction that like, yes, wormholes and time travel are potentially going to be an important part of this movie. Because the next scene with Noah Wiley, I think, is the one where he nopes out of talking about this. Like, so he doesn't go very far down this path with him.
Right, which is why I think they don't outstay their welcome. And that second scene where he nopes out of it, like that I find really fascinating. Just trying to recall my own upbringing going to Catholic school, where like there were the more progressive teachers who would want to like share things that were outside of like the status quo kind of the conversation. I just find it really interesting. And rewatching it as an adult, like looking at it from the perspective of like someone trying to like keep their job, and not say like the wrong thing. I find fascinating.
Yeah, there'll be a bunch of that between him and his girlfriend or wife, Drew Barrymore. So we got a couple of quick scenes here. I'll skip through, but we get to Donnie meeting with Thurman again. He tells her what he's learned about Grandma Death, and he thinks Frank wants him to talk to her. And this is where we have this scene where he asks, what was it that Grandma Death whispered to you that day you almost hit her with her car? And what she had whispered in his ear was, every living creature on Earth dies alone.
She was just standing there in the middle of the road, frozen. So I got out of the car and I walked over to see if she was okay. And she leaned over and whispered in my ear.
What did she say?
I mean, I think Frank wants me to go talk to her, because the last time I saw him, he asked me if I knew about time travel. And she wrote a book about it, so that can't be like a coincidence, right?
Donnie, what did Roberta Sparrow say to you?
She said that every living creature on Earth dies alone.
How did that make you feel?
It reminded me of my dog, Callie. She died when I was 8, and she crawled underneath the porch.
To die?
To be alone.
Do you feel alone right now?
I mean, I'd like to believe I'm not, but I've just never seen any proof, so I just don't debate it anymore, It's like I could spend my whole life debating it over and over again, weighing the pros and cons, and in the end, I still wouldn't have any proof, so I just don't debate it anymore. It's absurd.
The search for God is absurd?
It is if everyone dies alone.
Does that scare you?
I don't want to be alone.
And this reminds Donnie of the time when his dog crawled under a porch to die. And Thurman asks if he feels alone, and he says, I don't debate it anymore. Search for God is absurd. Or is the search for God absurd? It is if everyone dies alone, and I don't want to be alone. Right? This is like Donnie's truth. I mean, yes, he's supposed to save the universe or whatever, but really what he longs for is human connection. He feels entirely isolated from everyone around him.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what a great way to take a classic teenage problem and turn it into, high stakes sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like I said, to me, this is like one of the most important scenes in the movie, because this really lays out kind of, again, who Donnie really is and what this movie is really about under all of its kind of confusing nonsense.
Yeah, again, the therapy scenes are good ways of really getting into the heart of the story beats that we need to know about, and like the character stuff that we need to know about for Donnie.
I mean, in a way, these therapy scenes are almost like Richard Kelly just talking to us, the audience, going, this is kind of what I want this movie to be really about.
Yeah.
So Mom, Rose meets with another woman who's raving about Jim Cunningham. We have a short scene of that. And we get to the scene where people are drunkenly watching a football game. Donnie appears to be drunk too. And he has this vision of these, what look like elongated soap bubbles, CGI soap bubbles coming out of people's chests and kind of winding around the house. And he sees one come out of himself. People are following the bubble paths as they walk. He sees one come out of himself, and it leads him to a closet upstairs in which is a gun. And this is our first brush with what the movie will kind of, again, this is like Donnie seeing the path of causality.
Yeah. This is where it really gets into a question of like, well, what is actually free will?
I think this is a great way of like expressing that visually in like a really just like, this is a simple shorthand of like, there it is. You literally have a path laid out for you that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bubbles, I don't know, like when the bubble like turns into like a literal like hand that like Donnie, that kind of wiggles at Donnie like, come this way. Like that's a little too much.
Yeah. No, the effects don't really hold up very well. They are sufficiently weird and abstract that they didn't ruin the scenes for me, but they were definitely much more like cutting edge when this movie first came out.
So it's now October 18th, 1988. And Donnie's talking to Gretchen, and they're talking about, well, what if you could go back in time and fix things? And he tries to kiss her. She recoils and basically says, I want you to kiss me when it reminds me how beautiful the world can be, but not right now because there's some fat guy watching us.
Yeah.
So they don't kiss. The parents go to meet with Thurmond, and I like this. She's like, I guess you're here to probably find out what the hell's happening with your son, right? What do I think? And while she's explaining, like, hey, your son hasn't been telling you about his like imaginary bunny friend and all of this stuff, Donnie goes out and grabs a knife and has this hallucination of stabbing Frank in the eye over and over again in like a mirror reflection of him, which cuts back to the therapist saying, I think Donnie should have more hypnotherapy and more meds, and the parents are all about it.
Donnie's aggressive behavior, his increased detachment from reality, seemed to stem from his inability to cope with the forces in the world that he perceives to be threatening. Has he ever told you about his friend Frank?
Frank?
Yes, the giant bunny rabbit.
What?
I don't recall him ever having mentioned a rabbit.
Donnie is experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination. This is a common occurrence among paranoid schizophrenics.
What can we do?
I would like to do more hypnotherapy and increase his medication.
Whatever will help him, really. That's why we're here. We just would like him to experience some relief. So, if you think that more medication will do that, then I think we should give it a try.
Yeah. And of course, the stabbing of the eye is then, foreshadowing of what we will find out about Frank in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even when Donnie's not stabbing him, Frank's right eye is glowing, like with this big lens flare, and which, means something, if you're watching the movie for the second time. But yeah, right now they want you to notice his eye. So now we get to this amazing scene where Cunningham has been invited to give a big speech at the school. They're having this assembly, and kids are coming up to ask him advice questions about life. And finally, Donnie's turn. He gets up and he confronts Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How much are they paying you to be here?
Excuse me? What is your name, son?
Gerald.
Well, Gerald, I think you're afraid.
Are you telling us this stuff so we can buy your book? Because I gotta tell you, if you are, that was some of the worst advice I ever heard.
You see how sad this is?
I want your sister to lose weight, tell her to get off the couch, stop eating Twinkies, and maybe go out for field hockey. You know what? No one ever knows what they want to be when they grow up. It takes a little while to find that out, right, Jim? And you. Yeah, you. You're sick of some jerk shoving your head down the toilet. Well, you know what? Maybe you should lift some weights or take a karate lesson, and the next time he tries to do it, you kick him in the balls.
Son, do you see this? Right? This is an anger prisoner, a textbook example.
Prisoner.
Do you see the fear, people? This boy is scared to death of the truth. Son, it breaks my heart to say this, but I believe you are a very troubled and confused young man. I believe you are searching for the answers in all the wrong places.
You're right, actually. I am I'm pretty troubled and I'm pretty confused, but I'm afraid, really afraid. Really afraid, but I think you're fucking Antichrist.
And he basically says, you're giving all these kids terrible advice. Like, the overweight kid wants to know what he should do. And Donnie's like, you should exercise and eat right. That's what you should do. And he calls Jim the Antichrist to a huge round of applause. This scene is like super cathartic. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, like this is a movie that feels snarky for the establishment, and is very happy to tell off anything that it feels is a hypocrite.
It's got that Holden Caulfield energy, right? Everybody's a phony.
Yeah.
I like what they do here in that you want to root for Donnie when he does this, but he's not, a white knight. Like I said, he flooded the school. He sets fire to buildings. Like he's not, sometimes his like anti-authoritarianism is pointed in the right direction. And other times it really is just destructive and, maladaptive. And so I like that they've made him complex that way.
Yeah, and I mean, even like his dislike of Cunningham, like he seems fixated on it afterwards. Like he is still talking about it, and Gretchen is like annoyed that he can't stop like harping on it for a character who ultimately hasn't done anything at this point wrong to him besides just be like a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, they have no interpersonal grief. Like they barely met each other.
Right.
And Donnie resents him, for what he stands for, more than who he is personally. But as you said, yeah, he's ranting to Gretchen about it. And she's like, hey, are you okay? You need to calm down. And Donnie gives her the book and explains he's been having visions that exactly match what's in the book, including this like spear that comes out of your chest. And he goes to talk to Noah Wiley about this again. And he says, well, what you're describing is an act of God. And Donnie's all about like, well, this is your path, right? You must not be able to do anything. And Noah Wiley correctly points out, but if you can see the path, doesn't that necessarily mean you could make a choice to deviate from it? The path that a choice exists negates predestination. And this is where he says, and now I can't talk to you about this anymore for reasons.
Well, each vessel travels along a vector through space-time along its center of gravity.
Like a spear.
I beg your pardon?
Like a spear that comes out of your chest.
Sure, yeah. And in order for the vessel to travel through time, it's got to find a porthole, or in this case, a wormhole, or...
Well, could these portals just appear anywhere, anytime?
I think that's highly unlikely. No, I think what you're talking about is an act of God.
Well, if God controls time, then all time's pre-decided.
I'm not following you.
Like every living thing follows along set path. And if you could see your path or channel, then you could see into the future, right? Like, that's a form of time travel.
Well, you're contradicting yourself, Donnie. If we were able to see our destinies manifest themselves visually, then we would be given a choice to betray our chosen destinies. And the mere fact that this choice exists would make all preformed destiny come to an end.
Not if you travel within God's channel.
I'm not going to be able to continue this conversation.
Why?
I could lose my job.
Okay.
Right, because he started talking about God, and it got really weird on that one.
Yeah, and this is actually before his girlfriend is, going to be persecuted out of the school for the crime of free thought. But he obviously senses, this school's got a little bit of footloose in it, and we can't rock the boat too much. So, but this is where like Donnie feels really hurt by this, right? Like again, like he's alienated. He's now lost this connection to someone who actually wanted to engage with him about the weird shit he's been experiencing. So he's decides to walk to school, and on the way to school, or from school perhaps, he finds Cunningham's wallet and his ID, which lets him know exactly which house is his, which will come back later.
Yeah, I also found that funny because that was specifically the scenario that he was presented, or at least that one of the scenarios that we looked at with the like fear love scale earlier, where it's like find the wallet, like how do you react? Is that like on the fear love spectrum? So it the fact that it happened like very literally, I was like, oh, that's cute-ish.
Right, which is that was the conundrum he was presented with in the class, which is like, you find someone else's wallet. What are you supposed to do with it? Kind of stuff.
Right.
Do you give back the wallet and the money? Do you keep the money and give back the wallet? That kind of stuff. Anyway, he tells his therapist about his vision of the bubbles and the book. And she asks, well, what did you find when you followed the path of bubbles? And he says nothing. He lies about having found a gun. And they have this interesting scene where he and Gretchen are like pitching an invention to Noah Wyle, and the invention is infant memory generators. And it's like kind of these little goggles you put on a kid, supposedly while they sleep, to give them more visions and thoughts. To which Noah Wyle correctly points out, like, wouldn't their eyelids be closed? How would they even know this was happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it felt like just like kind of like one of those like bullshit like science projects that middle school, high school kids are trying to put together as like, with zero research, here's a proposed business plan product kind of thing.
Yeah. This ends with Seth Rogen and the bully menacing Gretchen and confronting her about the stabbing that happened to her mom, which understandably upsets her. She runs out, and Donnie goes after her, and they kiss for the first time, and they decide to go to a movie.
Yeah, this whole sequence there. So first of all, the bullies, like, for one thing, where they escalated real quickly to being like, I think your product's dumb, and also, didn't your mom get stabbed by your dad? Is basically the escalation of that all, and then they just like start going like like making like stabbing motions, and I'm like, who has that lack of empathy for a person? Jesus Christ, man! Like,
even for a bully in a movie set in the 80s, they're pretty awful. The interesting thing is, so this is when they kiss for the first time, like this passionate kiss. They will share another passionate kiss later in the movie, but both times it's tied into her distress over the situation with her parents. And it's like the least erotic thing you could think of, right?
Right.
Violence against your parents, and now it's time to make out. Like there's something, I'm not exactly sure what Kelly is trying to say, other than maybe this is Donnie's way of trying to comfort her. Again, like, I need a human connection. Here it is. Literally an actual physical connection.
Yeah, and I think the argument is that she's also trying to find the beauty in the world, and so her relationship with Donnie is like one of those things that she finds as being beautiful.
Yeah. So they decide to go to a movie. They go to see The Evil Dead. I did not look up when did The Evil Dead come out, whether it would have been in theaters in October of '88. But she falls asleep immediately and takes the nap of all naps.
Yeah, Jesus. It like the whole movie.
Yeah. It's a long-ass nap, because while she's sleeping, he gets another vision of Frank the Bunny, and who's sitting there in the theater with him. And he asks Frank to take the mask off, which he does, revealing a human kid a kid, like a teenager, with a hideous wound in his left eye, or right eye.
What happened to your eye? I'm so sorry.
Why do they call you Frank?
It is the name of my father. And his father before me.
Frank? When's this gonna stop?
You should already know that.
want you to watch the movie screen. There's something I want to show you. Have you ever seen a portal?
Yep. We don't know what it is yet, but it's like clear. It's a very attention-grabbing wound in the eye.
Yeah, and he asks, like, why are you called Frank? He says, my father's name, my father before me. And he asks, have you ever seen a portal? When is this going to stop? All these kinds of questions about the sci-fi problem. When is this, what's the deal with the world ending? And when he tells him, look at the screen, and we see this like hole with clouds in the middle of the Evil Dead, like on the silver screen there, that like disappears. And then we see Jim Cunningham's house. And the plan is burn it to the ground. So Donnie walks out and just leaves Gretchen asleep there in the theater.
Yep. And she's just asleep the whole time, like completely asleep. Doesn't wake up a little bit in the middle of it. Doesn't lean over, doesn't like roll over onto him at all. Like is just completely out for the entire movie while he goes off and sets fire to a house.
Yeah, we don't know how long it would take him to get to and from the house. He's got a can of gasoline he must have had to buy on the way there. This took a while.
Yes. The logistics, man. The logistics.
I mean, I've fallen asleep in a movie before. I don't know if I've ever fallen asleep for that long. Even when I was like, when my kids were super little and, waking up in the middle of the night and I was way sleep deprived. I remember falling asleep in movies I was bored in, but never this much. All right. So, but Donnie doesn't burn the Jim's house to the ground just yet, because while he's out doing this, we also get to see sparkle motion. So, we get some of the like stage mom stuff before they go on with Farmer, telling him, Bethany, if you vomit, swallow it. But then they do their dance to Duran Duran, Notorious. But yes, this is when Donnie goes over to Jim's house and douses it in gasoline and sets it on fire.
Yeah, so just like a lot of stuff going on during that screening of Evil Dead.
Yeah, I do like the sparkle motion bit. It's pretty fun because we've heard about this throughout the movie. Now we actually get to see it.
Yeah. Like every time where we see sparkle motion in action is a fun sequence.
Yeah. Once again, what's interesting is this was not the song that Richard Kelly wanted to use. So it was choreographed to a Pet Shop Boys song, which they could not get the rights to at the time. So they swapped it out for Notorious, which thankfully I guess has the exact same tempo. So the dance moves work.
The beats match up. Yeah.
Yep. And it's, looks like middle school or elementary school kids doing a choreographed dance. Like it's amateurish, but it's cute.
Yep.
Donnie returns to the theater. Gretchen is still sleeping. She literally missed the entire thing. And he kisses her. And I can't believe she doesn't notice how he might smell.
Yeah, you'd think he would smell, if not of smoke, of at least the gasoline.
Right. But anyway, Elizabeth is watching news of the blaze. And we find out that not only did Jim Cunningham's house burn down, but when it burned down and the authorities went in to deal with it, they found what is described as a kiddie porn dungeon.
Yep. Yeah, they're like, we have a back room. Oh my God, there's so much kiddie porn.
As we said, he is the worst.
Yes, like he is awful. He has a whole dungeon of it.
Yeah, which is interesting if you think about the end of this movie is ultimately to undo this universe. So in the primary timeline where Donnie dies as he's supposed to in bed, does this mean the better version of the world is that Jim goes on to enjoy and or make child pornography?
It's never revealed. I mean, it's it's never revealed to the world, and because it's never revealed to the world, Rose is not gone when gone to the sparkle motion contest. Now it's a question of would they even go with Donnie having recently passed away, but it's a whole bunch of questions of how things go in the prime timeline.
Well, it's also a utilitarian thing, I suppose, where you figure, like, in theory, if Donnie doesn't do what he does, both timelines are completely destroyed. So you're basically saying, well, I guess having a universe in which Patrick Swayze has some child pornography is still better than everyone winking out of existence entirely. So
yeah, there's also here's the other thing. It seems that everyone kind of remembers the things from the alternate timeline at the end of the movie. And does that mean they all remember him being a child pornography addict?
Well, and yeah, we have to wonder is like if the paths of causality are such that it would be revealed eventually just in a different way, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Jim is being arrested and Donnie, he smiles. He's happy about this, as he should. He did a good thing. So it's October 24th, 1988, and Drew Barrymore is getting a talking to from the principal, and she's told that she's got 1 week to finish out what she's doing, and then she's fired. And I love her reaction to this, right? She says, we're losing them to apathy and prescribed nonsense, to which she just walks out onto the baseball field, screams fuck as loud as she can, which is overheard by the Asian heavyset girl. And they have like a little moment of connection.
Yeah, Charita. That sequence there, I used to think was like such like like dramatic art, like walking out and screaming fuck when your emotions are so pure and loud right there. Yeah, it's true. It's an honest moment. It's authentic. It's just like, man.
I think what's more important again is that she has this moment of connection with the other kid, right? That it's like, see, being you know, just because you could be, a more to a kid, powerful adult, position of authority, and be pretty like Drew Barrymore is, like that's not, she's still a human. She's got a very real problem right now. She's just been fired.
Yeah,
and so they're like mutual, like, oh, okay, to put it in REM's way, everybody hurts, right? So we hear an announcement from the principal that Sparkle Motion, thanks to their success, has been invited to perform on Star Search, one of the most 80s sentences that's ever been.
Yep.
But through this, Farmer is shown the headline about Jim Cunningham. And the way this is shot makes you think that this perhaps has broken his spell over her.
But no.
That's not how cults work. So Farmer comes to talk to Mom, and she says it must have been a conspiracy to destroy an innocent man, but I have to go to his arraignment and I have to support him in every way I can. So Rose, you have to go to LA with the kids to audition for Star Search. And this is where we get the line.
Rose.
Kitty.
Rose, I'm sure that you're aware of the horrible allegations against Jim Cunningham.
I know, I saw it on TV, something about a kitty porn dungeon.
Oh, please, don't use those words. It's obviously some kind of conspiracy to destroy an innocent man. And I have taken it upon myself to spearhead the Jim Cunningham defense campaign. Rose, I have to appear at his arraignment tomorrow morning. And as you know, the girls are scheduled to leave for Los Angeles in the morning. Now, as their coach, I was the obvious choice to chaperone them on their trip,
But now you can't go.
Yes. Now, believe me, of all the other mothers, I would never dream of asking you, but none of the other mothers are available to go.
I don't know, Kitty. It's a bad weekend. Eddie's in New York.
Rose, I don't know if you realize what an opportunity this is for our daughters. This has been a dream of Samantha's and all of ours for a long time. I made her lead dancer. Sometimes I doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion.
Yeah, this is possibly my... Yeah, it's one thing that was just wonderful is just like, I would have asked every other mother, and I did before I asked you. Is one thing, but then yeah, it's like, I'm starting to doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion.
That is, the line. That's probably the one that at least certainly gets quoted the most around here. If my wife or I are like talking about, hey, you need to step up or take care of something, anything where it involves commitment, this line will get tossed out.
Yep.
And anyone listening should do the same, whether you've seen the movie or not. So mom comes. She says she's not going to do it, but she obviously relented.
Right, and dad is away for the weekend, so like it is a weekend where it is just the kids at home,
opening the universe up for party time, as we'll see in a bit. But yeah, I love this last scene between Donnie and his mom because, like, again, like she has some empathy for what he's going through, and like they actually share, like as opposed to the scene before where he's calling her a bitch, like they really connect here.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Mary McDonnell is just such a great actress, and like just emotes so well as this mom character.
She always plays a good mom. I think when she plays one, she has such a like kindly demeanor about her. Her delivery is kind of very soft, but still has kind of like a strength to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. He says, "How does it feel to have a wacko for a son?" She says, "It feels wonderful." Right. That's just what he needed to hear at that moment.
Yep.
And so we have this quick shot of like Donnie has this letter to Sparrow, Grandma Death, in his hand, and that which will come into play later. We don't see what he wrote, and it's now October 26, 1988, and Drew Barrymore and Donnie are talking about Cellar Door, the most beautiful combination of sounds.
Hello, Donnie. It's Friday. Shouldn't you be off with your friends, scaring old people?
What's going on?
I don't know. It's a good question. Suffice to say, I'm no longer your English teacher. They fired me.
That's bullshit. You're the only good teacher here.
Thank you.
What's cellar door?
This famous linguist once said that of all the phrases in the English language, of all the endless combinations of words in all of history, that cellar door is the most beautiful.
Cellar door.
And I thought this was something that went back to Tolkien, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's one of those quotes that I know mostly from this movie, but it is a thing that I hear all the time.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep thinking that maybe it was something related to Tolkien, and that's why like the Elvish language in Lord of the Rings sounds the way it does. This was his thing, but
I would believe it. Yeah,
I could be totally wrong. Write in and let me know. But anyway, this is an interesting scene. So Donnie comes across the heavyset Asian girl and just tells her that he promises that one day everything will be better for you. And she runs away screaming. And this was really interesting because like he tries to have this human connection, tell her something positive and comforting, and her reaction is to run and scream.
Well, because like the way everyone always approaches her in that context is to bully her. And, especially with like the language gap that we're sort of presented with for her, like she assumes that he is just doing the thing that is like the bullying that everyone always does. And her defense mechanism immediately pops up regardless of the context. But then we see that she has apparently a crush on Donnie Darko and has like scribbled his name on her notebooks.
Yeah, it's an understandable reaction from an embarrassed girl who probably has very low self-esteem, and it's interesting, right? Like he actually reaches out to her, and I bet immediately she was like, "Oh, I screwed that up," right? I did the wrong thing, but we don't see what happens after that. So now we get this scene of Thurman hypnotizing Donnie again. And he does this thing where like sometimes he does this when he's talking to Frank or when he's under hypnosis, that he does kind of this baby voice a little bit. Right? He kind of sounds younger than he really is. And he this is where he confesses, I flooded the school. I burned down the pervert's house. Again, fire and water power stuff.
Yeah.
And he says, I had to obey Frank because he saved my life. And it's happening soon. The sky is going to open up. And they have this like moment where she tries to like explain to him, like, oh, if the world ended, there would only be you and him and no one else. Like, I don't think the therapist even knows what she's saying. It makes no sense. And then finally she just wakes him up out of it because he's too upset.
I have to obey him or I'll be left all alone. And then I won't be able to figure out what this is all about. I won't be able to know his master plan.
Do you mean God's master plan? Do you now believe in God?
I have the power to build a time machine.
How is that possible? How is time travel possible, Donnie?
Time's up, Frank said.
When is this going to happen?
Soon.
What is going to happen?
Frank is gonna kill.
Who is he going to kill? Who is he going to kill, Donnie?
I can see it right now! These guys can't open up.
Yeah, and this is of course like the spot that like contradicts like my whole like is he just like fucking with her in the earlier hypnosis scene, because he's like clearly revealing a lot of information here.
Yeah, I don't think he would knowingly tell anyone that he flooded the school or burned down the house.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I don't know what to make of what Thurman says in this scene, because it's like, even knowing what I know about the director's cut, like it sounds like nonsense.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it either.
If you know, write into Nostalgia Mark Adam and explain this shit. Anyway, so it's now October 29, 1988. We're getting perilously close to the end of the world, according to Frank. And we find out that Elizabeth got into Harvard. And they're talking about, there's like a Frank the Bunny pumpkin in their kitchen, which is creepy. But they decide they're going to have a party. The parents are out. It's the 80s, and that means party time.
Yeah.
And we cut to a huge Halloween party, at which Gretchen arrives in tears, and Donnie leads her up. She's like not in costume. Donnie's just kind of wearing this like shirt with a skeleton on it. Like he's not really in costume either. And we find out that Gretchen's mother supposedly committed suicide, but by stabbing. And
she's gone missing.
Something like that. She believes her stepdad actually did it. Like came back, found her, and killed her.
Right.
And she says, I guess some people are born with tragedy in their blood and then they make out. Like, again, like that's the moment you make out. Again, I know she's desperate for.
I mean, it's implied that they have sex.
Right.
And that is some trauma pairing right there.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine finding out my mom was murdered by my father and then deciding, man, I'm so horny right now. Like those things don't go together. Super weird. So Liz, again, Maggie Gyllenhaal is asking if anyone has seen Frank. So why does Liz know who Frank is? Well, we're going to find out real soon. Mom leaves a message on the phone, on the answering machine, about Sparkle Motion doing very well at their audition. And Donnie and Gretchen, as you said, come down the stairs, seemingly post-coitally, to Under the Milky Way by... I forget the name of the band. It's like The Church or something.
You got me. I know none of these bands, so I'm deferring to you on all of this.
Oh, man. You got some good new wave stuff to find. But yeah, Under the Milky Way is a cool song. Very pretty. I don't know any other songs by that band, but this is
it's a banger soundtrack. I just don't know any of the bands.
Ooh, Echo and the Bunnymen is great. Their other big one is Lips Like Sugar. It's a great song. And a good karaoke song if you can find it. All right, so it is now October 30th, 1988. 6 hours remain. Donnie walks he's following his bubble path, and the camera is like wildly swinging around him. And again, this leads him to the fridge where the whiteboard is, we mentioned before. We've seen it a few times in the movie, and it says, Frank was here, went to get beer. So Frank is now in this world somehow. Again, we're going to find out soon. And he has this vision of like the bubble, like a bubble like comes towards him, envelops him, and he sees clouds, a portal. He hears the word cellar door, and he says, he just grabs Gretchen and says, we got to go. And this leads to a very Spielberg-y scene of kids on bikes. It's the 80s, and kids got to be on bikes.
Yeah.
I forget who goes with him. It's him and Gretchen, and I thought there were other people with him.
It's his two friends.
Oh, the two dudes that like talking about Smurfs fucking. Okay.
Yeah.
They come to Grandma Death's house, and they decide they're going to go in there through the like cellar door that goes into her house and try and find out what's what. And they go inside. And I love the set dressing here for a minute. Like in terms of like, what's the inside of Baba Yaga's house? Like it's pretty cool. Like there's like a creepy old piano and.
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's appropriately spider webby.
Yeah, I wish I imagine like the set designers spent a lot of time putting all of the like stuff in there. Like, what is this lady's life like? I wish we got to see more of it, but it's pretty dark. We don't get to see a lot of it, and not before long they're jumped by the bullies.
What the fuck are you here? Hey! Oh my God! You're dead! What do we do? Oh shit! Leave him alone!
Don't fucking move! Don't fucking move! What did I say? There's a car! Get the hell out of here now! Come on! Seth, there's a car coming! Let's go!
I have a bigger knife now.
Fuck!
Did you call the fucking cops? Mark, what did you just say? What the fuck did you just say?
Our savior.
So they're outside. They're escorted outside the house, like again with like knives to their throats, and they see that a car is coming. And so Seth Rogen is like, "Hey man, I don't want to be caught holding a knife to someone. I'm going to split because there's this car coming." And Donnie calls the car, it's a Deus Ex Machina, which is really interesting that he's going to pull that term right here at this moment.
Yeah.
Because they've talked about God in this movie a little bit, but not directly, even though in theory, all of this like universe bending stuff would require divine intervention to happen. It's kind of chalked up more to like sci-fi weirdness or some aspect of religion that is so far afield from Western conceptions.
Donnie makes
God.
the comparison with God.
A little, but I'm saying they don't hit this very hard. Like this is again they bring up God like in a more direct way, pretty sparingly.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just very on the nose. So I guess the biggest thing when he says it.
Well, if you're talking about predestiny, I guess you have to wonder, well, then who is deciding what everyone's predestiny is, right?
Right.
So the car is approaching and it swerves to miss Grandma Death, who at this exact moment has come out to check her mail again. And when the car swerves, it runs over Gretchen, who is on the ground, instantly killing her.
Yeah, that's such a brutal kill there.
Yeah. I mean, they have not signaled this was coming in any way. So
it's just a very sudden, just boom, a character that we have all grown to like. Boom, done.
And talk about like her life full of suffering. So like, again, her dad is out of the picture. Her stepdad seemingly killed her mom, and then she dies the same night. Like it's it's a lot of tragedy for this family.
Yeah.
And so who steps out of the car? But this guy dresses as a clown, followed by another person in the costume, Frank the Bunny. And like all of our, if we could see all the bubble paths, they're all converging now at this moment. Because he's like, he pulls off the mask. We see it's the same kid as before. And
but notably, his eyes are intact.
Yep. Right until Donnie decides to pull out the gun he had found an hour and a half earlier in the movie.
Right.
Which he's carrying on his person for reasons unknown, and shoots this kid, Frank, right in the eye.
She dead?
What were you guys doing in the middle of the road, huh? What are you thinking?
Go home! Go home and tell your parents everything's gonna be okay. Go!
Yeah. I wonder how this like scene plays out, because like Frank immediately is like, what was she in the road for? And like, I'm wondering if there was ever a scenario where this was de-escalated. But I mean, Donnie had finally found that human connection in Gretchen. And the fact that she's killed in the scene, strips him away of that and makes him ready for his duty to sacrifice himself and all that. But like before that, he's filled with rage and lashes out at the universe. And it's interesting though that like, I don't know, like he doesn't react more to like it being Frank.
I think he.
I know he's so upset. Like,
well, he's upset, but I think on some level he seems to understand of like the thing he's been getting visions of is like ultimately the future of this kid dying, not necessarily by his own hand, but like it's great. This idea of like, again, Frank is supposed to be shepherding him, right? This manipulative living and dead. Or they're manipulating him into where he needs to ultimately be, which is, this feeds back into the conversation he had with Gretchen about, if you could go back and change things, right? At one point, he literally references the DeLorean in Back to the Future when he's talking with Noah Wyle. He's, I like that movie. It was really, cool and futuristic. Yeah. And that's what I think he because he forged this connection with Gretchen, he's willing to die if he knows that in the alternate timeline, events won't, because simply by him not existing, events must unfold a different way, which means she lives instead of she dies. And that's what he's there to go do ultimately. Mm-hmm. Because Grandma Death shuffles back into her house. Donnie carries Gretchen's body somewhere. We don't see where. He goes and finds Liz, who's sleeping, kisses her on the head. He takes the car keys because he's not supposed to drive. And he sees this portal above his house. And he drives the car with Gretchen back to the lookout which is the first scene in the movie.
Yeah, the opening of the movie there.
Yep. And he's counting down the remaining time till the world's supposed to end. And we get this montage about, Mom and Sam are on the plane back from LA, and there's all this turbulence, right, as they go through some kind of atmospheric vortex. So we see the jet engine fall, onto the house, sort of through the clouds. We see it like go through like a wormhole. As all of this stuff, shots of the movie back through time. Things literally moving backwards in the footage, all this stuff, over audio of like Gretchen saying, hey, what could you do if you could go back and fix things? And audio of this, what I think is the letter to Grandma Death that Donnie wrote. And like, we don't understand how exactly Donnie manages to go back in time. Like, I'm glad the movie doesn't bother to show us. I guess we assume he drives there in the car. It's not clear.
Yeah, I've never really worried about it, but because I've been more worried about the vortex that rips the plane that his mom is riding on, like rips the engine off and like flings it back in time a week, or however long.
And again, it's all metaphorical, right? It's better off being metaphorical than knowing, well, how exactly did he manage to go back in time? That's not important.
Because none of it's real. Like, for starters, like the point is this like weird story about causality and predestination and choice.
Yeah, and so like you said before, like he's making a choice, even if in theory he's predestined to make it. And he's back in his bed the night of the crash, and he's just sitting there laughing with a big smile on his face as we get the cover of Tears for Fears' Mad World by this version is by Gary Jules, this sad piano version that is just haunting as fuck. It's great. And I think the lyrics here are really on point. This all around me are familiar faces, worn out places, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere. I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad. The dreams of which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Things are crazy, but like all we have is each other, and we have to think about the way we affect each other, which is borne out in this montage that we see of all the other characters to this music.
Yeah, and I mean, like, talk about just like a showstopper of a final number for this movie. Like, this is such a memorable montage to wrap up things with.
I mean, we see there's a couple of things. You see Drew Barrymore and Noah Wiley sleeping together, but he's like lying awake at night, right? She's asleep, he's not. We see Jim Cunningham like just crying, which I guess he's struggling with the monster that he is. We see Farmer just sort of fretting and worrying. We see Frank design, like you see like the plans for the Frank the Bunny mask that he's eventually going to make, or he has made it. It's there, like, or at least a prototype of it. He has it.
Yeah, he's working on it there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like everybody just seems like alone and afraid, right?
Yeah, and like kind of aware of the timeline that they just missed out on, but like not really.
Yeah, it feels profound. Like I think they're trying to say, yeah, like again, this idea of everyone you meet is having some kind of horrible struggle that you can't see, and so be kind to them because you never know what people are dealing with. That's so much a part of what this movie is. It's this is really powerful stuff. And so we have our final scene. Donnie's body is wheeled out on a stretcher. The family's crying, although Mom is weirdly just calm and smoking. And Gretchen bikes up and asks this bystander neighbor kid what happened.
Hey, what's going on?
Horrible accident. My neighbor got killed.
What happened?
Got smushed by a jet engine.
Got it?
What was his name?
Donnie Darko. I feel bad for his family.
Yeah.
Did you know him?
No.
And, the kid tells him, yeah, this kid, Donnie Darko, died, got crushed by the jet engine. And she says, I feel bad for his family. And Gretchen and Mom kind of make eye contact, and they all sort of share this awkward wave. And she asked, the kid asked, did you know him? And she says, no. And then it just ends.
Yeah, and that wave, again, if you didn't see the first 5 minutes and you're like, what did I miss? Like, that wave is so, like, it's such a mindfuck.
These characters don't have a connection within the rest of the movie.
No.
They never meet. They never know about each other. I don't think Donnie even tells her. The only person Donnie ever talks to her about it, I think he tells his therapist at one point, I met a girl. That's it.
Yeah.
And yet now they've got this connection of some kind, again, a connection between two strangers across space and time, like entangled quarks, like there's just this sense of like, yeah, human beings are we're all part of this interconnected fabric that we can't see.
Yeah. It's it's such a weird note to end the movie on, but it certainly makes it feel like people can have that connection regardless of, even if it is destined to happen in the reality that they are in.
To me, that's what I think. I mean, kind of get moving into final thoughts, like why this movie, people, it still resonates with people. Here we are, over 20 years now since this movie first came out, and it still has this staying power. I think because, yes, it's a mind fuck in a lot of ways, but the real mind fuck is not the, hey, what's actually happening here with all of this, manipulated living and dead shit and stuff that, again, you only maybe even know about if you did the research. It's the like mind fuck of like thinking about the ways in which we are all interconnected. And that, we're, even if in theory we do all die alone in some way, we shouldn't. And maybe that's not really true. We're still together in one way, shape, or form. I mean, yeah. I mean, tell me your thoughts on kind of the final summation of this?
Yeah. I mean, like it's such a weird movie that I've always felt exists in a certain space to be a weird movie. And particularly when you look at Kelly's like other filmography, like Southland Tales, like in particular, on that one, but like the trajectory created by choice is such a fun space to explore in this movie. I think that there's a lot of interesting angst development going on here. And I don't know if it ultimately comes into having like a fully realized statement on it all, but it's certainly a very like authentic feeling movie that I've always thought has like very interesting things to say about causality and about choice. It's just a matter of like, it seems to work better in this more reduced area that is the theatrical cut. I think that it had a lot of stuff to say, but saying more doesn't necessarily actually say more. It is that restricted sort of trimmed down version that ultimately ends up being the most profound, because it allows itself to be kind of vague and apply to the most situations.
Yeah, and I think it's the way it interlinks causality with empathy, right? Like what empathy is about recognizing the effect that what you do has on other people. And so here we're taking this idea of cause and effect to the extreme, right? Of, predestination to the point of like, you are going to have to die to save the universe, a universe which only exists because of an accidental branching, right? You chose left when you should have chosen right. Everything, the ship has to be righted. The sacred timeline, to use Marvel parlance,
exactly.
must be preserved. And yet, like, that's why I really love the emotional climax of this movie, the scene where Gretchen dies, because like it's like all of these causal threads come like crashing in at once, right? The grandma death and the gun and Frank and like all of these things in one moment. And it's like this whole movie is like about watching dominoes fall and understanding, being kind of like enlightened or like a good person is not about the fear and love continuum. It's about understanding what those dominoes are and what it means to push them. So, yeah. Heady stuff for our, considering like other movies we plan on covering this month are like, Dirty Dancing and, Point Break. So, I'm really glad we sat down to do this, because this is a weird movie, and I'm glad I've got someone here to do it with me who looks at films the way you do.
Yeah, this was a fun one to revisit, and I'm sorry I'm like a little groggy. For listeners at home, it is 1:30 a.m. My time, so but I wanted to fight through this because Donnie Darko is a really fun movie that has I think a lot that it is trying to say, and probably again it benefits to be pared down to the most bonsai tree-ish pruned version of that. But it's a really fun movie, and I think it's cool and it's weird, and it comes from a time when movies were allowed to be weird. This is an era when I was seeing a lot of like these sort of like indie kind of movies that had like a little bit of money, but were allowed to be kind of small movies, and like streaming kind of wiped out at least them having a theatrical presence. So this was a fun one to come revisit.
Yeah, I'm really glad we did this, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again to talk about something else weird. Because I mean, look, we've done this in a Goofy movie. We've gone all over the map. Yeah. So, Case, once again, if people want to find your stuff, where do they find it?
So most of my stuff you can find at certainpov.com, or you can find me wherever you get podcasts. My shows are Another Pass and Men of Steel. Another Pass is a movie show. Men of Steel is a Superman show. And if you prefer to do the YouTube route, just look for Certain POV Media. That is our YouTube channel for the podcast network, and that is where all my shows go up. If you're looking for me on social medias, you can find me at Case Aiken on most of your platforms.
And if you're looking for us, just look for nostalgia on anything, because there's nothing else on the internet that uses that word at all. We found a unique one. So, yeah, go on the social medias and contact us there. If you have time, please do drop a review, either for my show or for Case's shows, or for any podcast you like. It actually makes a big difference if you do that. It helps visibility, helps people find it, and it just puts a little dopamine into our brains whenever it happens. So that's good. So yeah, do that. Word of mouth also. Coming up next, I'm not sure, because I'm recording these things out of order. It could be another Patrick MAYze thing. It could be something else entirely. But if you want to find out, go to find us on socials. I've been doing this on Facebook, Instagram, and BlueSky. But I'll post a clue every Wednesday as to what the next episode is going to be. So follow us there and play along. So Case, man, thanks again for dropping by. I love doing these podcasts with you.
Yeah, it's always a blast. Thank you again for having me on.
All right, well, you go get some sleep, because it's late where you are. And until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgia Marcanum.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday.
So there's this kid called Donnie Darko, and this aeroplane engine falls through his roof and lands where he's just been, but it's cool, because he's out sleepwalking, as is his habit, engaged in apocalyptic discourse with this freaky 6-foot rabbit. You see, our Donnie, in reality, doesn't have a firm hold. The rabbit teaches him about time travel and wormholes. He burns down Patrick MAYze's house, because the rabbit tells him to. He shags a chick called Gretchen, and the rabbit shows him what to do. Then they have a Halloween party with 80s tunes and beer, and they ride on their bikes through the night, and that's when things get weird. You see, the rabbit's drunk behind the wheel, and Gretchen cops a carful. So Donnie pulls out a gun and shoots a rabbit in the eyeball. Then he carries his girlfriend's body up the hill above their town and watches as the parallel universe he's been living in tumbles down. Then he uses telekinesis to rip an engine off a plane, and he's sucked back through the wormhole, and he's back at the beginning again. So when the jet comes through his ceiling, he's tucked up in his bed, and the rest of the world is safe. But Donnie Darko's dead. This film's an examination of time and space and psychosis, and an excellent example of why they developed myxomatosis.